What is going on, world? This is Chase Selmeyer with the Chasing Independence podcast, and we're back. We're back for episode 2. Can y'all believe it? We made it this far. I mean, what an accomplishment. 2 episodes? 2 episodes? No way. I thought 1 was lucky, but 2? All right, we're moving on, baby. If you did not have a chance to check out that first episode, head back, give that a listen. It's with lifelong water skier and sports enthusiast Gino Yockler. It's a lot of fun listen. Talks a lot about goal setting and mindset. But enough of that, because you guys are here for episode 2. And today I'm really excited. I sit down with the founder and CEO of Fuel Clothing. This individual has grown up in action sports. He's got it running through his veins. And the truth is, he honestly lives and breathes this stuff. It's apparent when you look at the brand of Fuel Clothing that they have such a good roots in action sports. This individual grew up snowboarding, skateboarding, surfing, motocross, working in garages with his dad as a mechanic as a kid. He's also the first to tell you that he probably only got this far in life and with the brand because he was too dumb to quit. I'd also say he's probably one of the hardest working guys I know in action sports. Constantly on the road, whether it be across the United States, across the globe, getting that face-to-face time with customers and other brands that he wants to network with. As he says, it's all about connecting the dots, and no trip goes unnoticed. One of my favorite things about this interview is how real he is about the struggles of an entrepreneur. He reminds us that entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart, that literally it takes hard work, hustle, being creative, and just finding ways around problems. We talk about some serious lawsuits he's had with big brands like Nike and Fuel TV, as well as how he's handled his situations. We talk a lot about customer loyalty and the importance of attracting people that resonate with your brand. Originally, we had planned to do this interview at a Red Bull motocross event that he was participating in, but due to coronavirus, they had to cancel it. So we knocked this interview out of his hotel room, and it worked out just great. And at the same time, it allowed us to talk a little bit about the effects of coronavirus towards business and how he looks to approach it. All right, enough messing around. Let's kick off this next episode of Chasing Independence from Podiums to Prosperity with our guest, Shane Levi Gould.
What is the fuel? What's the fire, the passion that makes us do what we do, to go out and snowboard or go out and skateboard? Because those sports, as graceful as they are, they're very humbling. You can work on things for days and weeks and never get them right. And there's certain tricks or certain things. And that's the thing, like skateboarding taught you, like, there's no freebies.
All right, gang, the Chase here with Chasing Independence. I made it to Dade City, yee, and I'm with my boy, Shane Levi Gould. What's up, dude?
Hey, how are you doing, man?
I'm good. I drove by Walmart. It was really small. I've never seen a small Walmart before. I was coming into this hotel and saw a couple of country boys jumping in the bed of their truck with some Fireball and whiskey, heading off to a wedding in their shit kickers. Where are we, and what the hell are you doing here?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I mean, every weekend I literally spend on the road traveling, and it's always some kind of bizarre event. And this just happened to be a great event. We're in Dade City, which I've never been here before. It is definitely in the sticks. There's a Dade City motocross track, and Red Bull put on an amazing event. And we actually had started the event on Friday was practice, and what it is it's called Day in the Dirt, and this company Fast House is a big provider of it. They do it in the West Coast, and it's a big hit, and they decided to bring it to the East Coast. So they got everything ramped up, and we had it started, and we thought, oh, this is on. We had practice on Friday, Saturday, Sunday's going to be the race, and everybody came out. I mean, literally Travis Pastrana and his whole Nitro Circus crew was there. It was just amazing, and I'm talking perfect weather, amazing event, and then all of a sudden, 10 o'clock at night, they give us okay, you got to be out by 10 a.m., and so that being said, another event, another wild weekend.
Why'd they kick you out? What's going on? I mean,
well, I guess
think we all know, but
yeah, I think obviously the coronavirus has they're really breaking down and looking at, I guess, the communities, how many people, if it's 250 people or 500 people at a time and in congregating in one area, they're deciding that this is something they need to put their foot down. And I think we had about 800 entries, and obviously a lot of, family and friends too. So there was, a good size event. So for them, it was like, okay, that's a no-go.
Wow. Yeah, it's too bad. I mean, in Florida, when we have all these awesome events coming through, the things that usually stop us are hurricanes. And some virus that came from trying to close this damn thing down.
Yeah, and it's so random because we've never been in this position before. We've never had a disruption of this magnitude worldwide that I remember. That I have been a part of, especially in my later years. I mean, I remember like 3 Mile Island, had a meltdown back in the 70s. Like there's little things that you remember, but like how this is a worldwide effect on every platform. Everything from social and media is just put it to the front of the line. It has instantaneously shut down everything.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited to make it up here. We planned on doing this interview at the track yesterday, but you know what? We made it work. We're over here in the hotel room, rocking it out, and I'm stoked to get it going. So, well, Shane, let's start. We'll jump into the kind of business and coronavirus effect and all that stuff in a minute, but I kind of want to know where you came from. What's the early story of Shane? And let's, how'd you get involved in action sports? And let's go back a little while.
Wow. Well, that's me taking it back. That's quite a ways. If you're taking it back to original action sports, I mean, I started snowboarding and surfing and skateboarding and motocross at an early age, well and before my teens. Even snowboarding in it, I started in 82 or 3. I mean, I was 12, 13 years old. I mean, it was very young. And I've always been around and loved individual sports. I was never really a team kind of goal-minded person. I was always like, okay, I want to be creative. I'm individual. I love skateboarding and snowboarding and surfing, those things. And those just always really worked for me. I thought to myself, like, how do I get involved in this more? As being as I grew up and I was getting around and traveling a little bit in these sports, and obviously snowboarding is really the catapult that put me in the position to do this and start this business. And I've spent about 10 years as a professional snowboarder, and those are amazing years traveling around the world. But it was also, my mindset was like, okay, this really isn't reality. This is like totally something crazy. I got to figure out a real job. Excuse me. And at that time, in 1992, I was, I had dropped out of college and I was like, okay, I'm going to be a pro snowboarder. And of course, I was, I guess, lucky enough to be able to do that. But I was also just enough wise, in my mind. I was like, okay, my dad's really bummed. My parents aren't too stoked on me doing this. Like, I got to maybe think of something. And of course, the clothing company was like probably the worst idea ever to come up with. But lo and behold, I did it. I started, with a very good friend of mine. We had a little bit of money. I think we had $1,200 is all we had to start with. And then we just said, all right, let's drive around our car and sell some T-shirts.
And that's how it started.
And that's it.
Well, who was responsible for getting you in the action sports then when you were younger?
Well, my father raced motocross, and he was around cars and racing. And my mom was always, she was, a very artsy woman, designing and doing stuff, and just a cultivation of those two. My father was never into surfing. He was he really was a motorsport enthusiast, big time. And so that's where I got the motorcycle side of things. And I think it was just, I had a couple of friends that were into skateboarding. We were in middle school and surfing, of course. And then we went on.
I'm sorry, where were you living at the time?
Well,
where you were able to do all this awesome stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wouldn't say surfing was very good in Hilton Head, because that's, it's very small waves, but then we were little kids and it didn't matter. So we were, that was that, and skateboarding around town. And then I went to school also up, I did do a boarding school up in upstate New York. And I remember before I went out there, this was in 1983, I think I started up there.
Was that one of those like high school kind of split day where you go to school and then snowboard the other half?
Well, they didn't have snowboarding then.
Okay.
Yeah. We went on a we went on a ski trip. My parents took me on a ski trip back in the early 80s. And I saw basically a wood plank with a rope on it. And I was like, wow, what's that? That thing looks really cool. You stand on it and like you ride down the hill. I go, I got to try that. That's up my alley. You stand on it sideways. It's like surf skate. And then I took it to school with me up in upstate New York. And of course, nobody knew what a snowboard was at that time. It was very rare. No mountain ever let you use it. And so I would just basically run around my Chuck Taylors and like ride down the side of the hill. And that was my snowboard career, the start of it. So, and then you fast forward to graduating high school, and I said, okay, well, where do I want to go? My education level wasn't good enough to go to a really school, and I wasn't really focused enough to be like, okay, I want to go to this school and I want to go do this and kind of work my way through the normal channels. I literally sat down and I said, I'm going to go to Colorado. And my stepmother was a librarian, and I just picked a spot and I said, Colorado looks good. Never been there. Didn't know anybody there. And I said, I might be able to get in. This is a little small community college, and there's a ski resort near it. So I'm like, this has got to be it. So I go out there, and this is Steamboat, Colorado, and I think 1989 or 90 or something like that. And of course, I did really well at snowboarding, enough that I just decided that snowboarding was more of a vehicle for me, I guess, to express myself.
What was the sport like then, I guess, when you were in Colorado then?
Well,
and the mountains, was it coming out? Was it releasing then? I mean, anybody wanted to jump on a board? And
Yeah. At that time in 1989, 90, 91, 92, snowboarding was really just coming off, and Breckenridge was a big part of it. All of Colorado was very, very influential at that stage of snowboarding, and everybody was like, oh, you're going to snowboard? You got to go there. And I was like, okay, well, I'll go there.
Where was your home mountain?
Steamboat. Yeah, Steamboat. So I thoroughly enjoyed the early days. I would go out on the weekends, I'd compete, I'd come home, I'd win a snowboard or some gear, and I'd sell it in my dorm room on the weekend or during the week, and then I'd go back to another contest the next weekend and do it again. And I literally would have like stacks of boards, and I'd just basically use my dorm room as a showroom and be like, okay, what do you need?
Come on in.
I got whatever you need, and I'm selling snowboard gear, and it was like jackets, pants, all kinds of stuff. And so I always,
your first snowboard shop? Was it your dorm room?
Yeah. It was a dorm room, and it was I remember Checkered Pig was one that I won a lot, Nitros, and just different brands. And I had met some people at Sims Snowboards that winter, and then they had asked me the next winter. They said, "Hey, would you like to come live with us?" These are the owners of Sims at the time, and do you want to live in our basement? And in Breckenridge, I'm like, yeah, I'll come live in your basement and just go out and snowboard and travel, and that's kind of how it started. And then, of course, that's when I called my dad and Mom said, hey, I'm not going back to school. It's time to, I'm gonna really pursue this and see what I can do.
Damn, that's wild. So that was kind of the kickoff of your snowboarding career, really, where you're gonna say, I'm going for this.
Yeah.
I want to be a professional snowboarder.
Yeah.
What was the vibe like in professional snowboarding at that time, and maybe who were your influences? Like, how did you train? How did you progress? Were you just a natural?
No.
Or were you like beat
No.
the shit out of yourself before you can land a trick?
Yeah, that's the thing is I was never really natural. There was many athletes that were much better. They literally would get up and they could just do it. I was just always determined to be able to figure it out, and I would just do it and ragdoll myself over and over and over until I figured it out. And we had to do both racing and freestyle, which was half pipe, and you did it combined. And I just happened to be just good enough at both of them that I could actually do well as an overall person, which was, in the early days. I mean, everybody had shit product and everybody just kind of wung it. And I happened to ride for Sims, which had some of the best riders in the world, of course, and Sean Palmer and Neil Drake was on that, and Noah Selaznick, Jenna Maya. There was some really good guys in that group, and there was a bunch of SoCal Tahoe guys I met all through it up at Hood, and then a bunch of Northwest guys I met up at Hood when I was working up at the snowboard camps in the summertime. So I created an early bond with all those guys up in the, all the LibTech guys. There was a whole crew of them up there, and they all kind of took me under their wing, and they were like, hey, here's a guy who's just by himself out here in the middle of nowhere. And so I had a whole crew, and we've all been great friends since then. I mean, I literally still see those guys to this day.
That's wild. So that was kind of like the group of people that were pushing you. You guys were feeding off each other. Yeah. The vibe was all there.
Yeah. And we'd see each other on the weekends. And then, of course, all summer long, we'd work together at Mount Hood. And Mount Hood was like the incubator for, if you wanted to be a pro snowboarder, you had to go to Hood. And you had to spend your time there. And And then, from there, that's where I was like, okay, well, if I'm on the road traveling, how can I need to sell something, just make some extra, hustle. And, so I started making these t-shirts that just said fuel. And I was like, fuel's your passion. Fuel's what's your fuel? What fuels you? And, so that was the kind of the incubator, or so to speak, of the brand.
So you're traveling around, you have something to sell. What were you selling, and what was kind of like the goal at that point for you?
Well, we weren't even thinking about a business. I mean, honestly, we were at the end of the day, we were just like, hey, if we can sell a couple of t-shirts, I can make a couple extra bucks, and I can get a Subway or maybe some extra cookies or whatever. I'm just trying to get by here. And my best friend, Buster Halderman, was a pro skateboarder. And so he had the skateboard, respect, and I had the snowboard respect. And we kind of had our dual sides and we both did both sports, but in each other's, he would go to Woodward, I would go to Mount Hood, and we would basically set this up, to really push the brand. And we didn't know what we were doing. I mean, we're kids, we're, 20 and 21 years old. And of course we didn't know how to run a business. We never worked at this kind of thing before. And, I thought to myself, like, well, let's just enjoy the ride and see what happens. If we go ahead and piss away our $1,200, okay, next year I'm 22 years old and okay, I'm at zero again. So, let's just give it a roll. And, so, that was kind of the beginning of it. And I really enjoyed the whole process. I mean, there's been so many crazy ups and downs since then, but the beginning of it, we have stuck to the DNA of what fuel is. We are action sports and motorsports. I mean, that's our DNA, and we've never strayed away from that.
When Buster was involved and you guys were kind of doing this thing and you all started, and again, it wasn't a goal to create a business, but in the circles you ran in, did you see other athletes doing things similar, or were they creating their own business as well? Or was that kind of just something nobody thought about? Do you think you had the foresight in that I need to do something else? Because like you said at the beginning, this is a very unique place I'm in as a pro athlete right now, and this isn't going to last forever.
Well, I think it was my parents going, this isn't going to last. That was more it.
Our parents always get in the back of our head. I hear my mom every time.
Yeah, it was like, this is not going to work. You have got to be kidding yourself. No, I just think that at the end of the day, I've always had that kind of initiative to be like, okay, what can I do? What else can I do just in case? Like, what's going to save me if this doesn't work? What can I do? Because this is fun. And when we started, it was kind of like, there wasn't a whole lot of people. There was some pro athletes that were starting brands all in that same time. So it was just like the end of the big brands that were dominating everything to all of a sudden these little tiny small brands all in the early 90s were popping everywhere. And people were really open at brick and mortar at that time to open their arms and let us in. I mean, that was the time when people wanted to try unique things. They wanted to try different brands. It was the right time. We didn't have the skills to really, navigate everything, but we were just like, hey, this is working. People are understanding it. We're starting to open some doors. People are putting it in their store. And this is obviously well before the internet and social media and all that. We were just road dogs. We would spend, and I'm still to this day, I will drive every weekend to be part of an event or go to an event to connect dots. And obviously my end goal now is a little different than it was when I first started being a snowboarder, now being a full business person. So there has been some challenges, obviously, from the brick and mortar to the internet to now social media. So much different days.
It is. And to your credit, you are a road dog. I mean, I no matter where I'm at, I always see Shane's pulling up in his van with thousands of miles on it. So,
well,
would you say that face-to-face interaction has been very powerful for growing your brand over these years, and just the hustle that you have dedicated to it?
Well, I look at it this way. You're if you're out of sight, you're out of mind. If you're not there, you're not going to get that contact. You're not going to connect with that person. I mean, I think I might have told you this yesterday. I mean, I literally was driving down the road in the middle of nowhere in Georgia, and somebody that we've been meaning to get together to connect on some manufacturing stuff actually sees me at a gas station out of nowhere, and I haven't seen in years, and literally pulls up and is like, hey, like, this is the craziest thing ever. We literally were meant to get together to do this. And we had a meeting for an hour and a half at a Subway, right there.
And you were running late too, because of the whole Corona scare and everything. And if the event was going on or not.
Well, I didn't know if the event was going on. And I was literally, I was waiting and waiting to hear, was it going to cancel? Then I ran late. I ended up getting down much, much later. And then that obviously stalled it some. But unfortunately, you just don't know these things. You don't know the outcomes. And what I say is, when I go to an event, I want to show my face to show that, hey, if somebody knows what I do, they know I'm there. I can help them out. Or if they know someone else that needs my help or expertise, I'm there. And I like, I don't understand when people work in an industry and then when they don't work in that industry anymore, they don't do it anymore. They don't go there. I'm like, why did you work in the motocross industry and then all of a sudden you lost your job and now you don't go to the races and watch? Like, you didn't have passion to be there in the first place? Like, even if I stopped my business tomorrow, I would still go to surf and skate and snowboard and motocross events and racing no matter what. Mm-hmm. It's just it's who I am. No one's paying me to go there. I am literally for 28 years been pushing myself to go to as many events as possible to hopefully connect the dots. And each time I go to an event, I literally connect the dots. Every single event. I don't care if it's a CrossFit event, a motocross event, a NASCAR, it doesn't matter. I will find one way or another that I can connect something and either there's a benefit or I can bring some value to someone else by helping them.
Yeah, so it kind of falls back to that your net worth is your network, and you've spent your life connecting people and finding ways to work with people. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, I just think it's, and there's, I always say there's ignorance is a bliss, I guess. A lot of people are like, why do you keep doing it? And I tell people all the time, when I first started, I didn't know if really the clothing business was really what I was supposed to do. Like, was this my gift? Was this really the thing I was supposed to do? And I really questioned that for years. And I was like, maybe I should be doing something else. Maybe this is not what I'm meant to do. And then I got to a point where I said, wait a second, this has been my livelihood and I'm actually making a living at it. Now I need to honor that gift. I got to really embrace that. And I got to say, okay, well, this is it. Now let's really milk it, where I'm going to really take every bit, triple down on this and really make, this is my piece of the pie. And what do I need to focus on? And then how do I need to navigate that to take that to the next level and the next level? And not everybody, goes down the road going, hey, I want to turn this in, I want to turn my little dream into $100 million business. Some people, it's like, I just want to create a brand that I just know that at the end of the day, I feel proud of, and I go home and I got my bills paid and I'm happy. But of course, in my mind, I'm always trying to push, how can I do better? How can I do a little bit better than last week? And can we help other customers out? Can we do something better that we're providing a service for them? So,
did that realization, once you kind of was clear, did you notice over time just an uptick in that? Mm-hmm. I mean, the passion was there.
Yeah. Well, the passion's always been there, 100%. I mean, anybody that's ever met me.
But your why was clear. So when you wake up, you were fueled up to go.
Yeah. No, I don't have slow mornings. I mean, my mind, even after 28 years, I want to go to work every morning. I'm stoked to go to work, and I don't care if it's in the office or if it's at the event. I really want to be there. I really want to connect the dots at the end of the day, and obviously spread the fuel word. I mean, what we do is, what's your fuel, and if you have a passion for that particular thing, hopefully they engage in it and understand it and go, okay, they get it. Now they're part of the family and they understand the fuel. And it's, I don't by any means, at the end of the day, it's like, we're not begging people to be like, hey, you got to buy fuel and that's the brand and and we're never been a cool brand as far as like, hey, this is the latest and greatest. We're just a brand that's just as solid as day one. It's just over time, we've just gotten better and better and better. And now we've come to a point where, we'll get into it, but the private label part has really helped out a ton of other brands. And that's what's really, to me, is gratifying that I can go work with some of the best athletes and brands and cultures and musicians and stuff in the world and help them bring their brand to fruition.
Very cool. Would you have any advice for anybody that's struggling with like figuring out their why, or like if maybe they're going through that kind of same question? Is this what I was put here to do? Is this my gift? Like, was there anything that you felt, I mean, you went through that process?
Well, you know, that's the thing is a lot of people want to, they want to believe that they have a gift in certain areas, but a lot of them don't put the work in. You know, that's the problem is they're like, oh, well, I'm a great musician, but I don't want to really write something and put it out until I think it's perfect. And that's the reason. And no, you just need to keep putting stuff out and you'll either make that jump where people understand and say, yes, you know, you're doing the right thing. And they obviously get involved and it works. But a lot of them they're always waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect this. My thing is I'm just too dumb to quit, and I'm just going to keep putting out stuff until I figure it out. And, you know, good, better, and different. I mean, I look back at stuff all the time and go, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I put that out. But it was the learning curve. I figured out, okay, that's why I did this, and this is why I'm doing this now. So
you went through the process.
Yeah, it's a process, and you know, mentally you have to go through it, and sometimes physically you go through it where you're like, you know, you're just exhausted, you know, from trying to figure it out, and sometimes you just have to literally go with your gut, you know, and I say that to a lot of people that they come to me and say, hey, I want to do what you do, and I go, well, it's not that easy. Like there's so many highs and lows that people don't know. And of course, you know, I'm pretty real about, you know, what our path has been. You know, we don't ever sugarcoat it, and we don't ever like, hey, you know, check out, we're flying this private jet. And like, no, it's just hard work. I mean, I just live in the van and I drive around and you know, hopefully one day that, you know, you connect the dots and you get a little bit better and you get better at it. And then you bring on more people and more talent around you. And all of a sudden it becomes a brand. And, but there's a lot of people that, you know, just this time and this day and age, they really just want to be there tomorrow. And I'm like, this is a long road. Like
instant gratification, overnight millionaires.
You know, the thing is people seem to forget the amount of time it takes to be that good. And I'm not saying we're good. I'm just saying that we've spent the time and we've gotten there. But to be that good at any of these sports takes a lot of time. Like, oh yeah, I want to be the next, you know, ABC person, you know, rider or skater or whatever. It takes an enormous amount of time. Now there's obviously natural talent, but there's still so many hours and days and years put in to be that person. And same thing in business. It's just, you might get a couple, which I think is the worst thing ever. Like, you know, you have people that become, you know, become famous overnight for social media. And you're like, wait a second, you know, like now show us the real talent that can carry you for the next 20 years on that, you know what I mean? Like it's beyond.
That ass is going to fade.
Yeah. The things are going to fade. But you know, that's the thing. It's just a different time. You know, people see that and they all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, that guy did it overnight. Yeah, that's rare that ever happens. Now
maybe they're even seeing that snippet of that time. They're not even seeing the process and the time it took them to get there.
Yeah. And I don't think there's I think it's unhealthy to think it's going to happen like that. And if it, you know, and then they get depressed when it doesn't work, and they're, you know, and then they don't believe in what they're doing. And it's in entrepreneurship. I mean, it's very trendy. Everybody wants to do their own thing and be business themselves, but it's a much harder game than people realize. And you have to have it in you. You don't just go do it and like, oh, now I'm that. It's inbred. Like ever since I was a kid, I've always been like, okay, I'm going to make tie-dyes because I see a bunch of hippies running around, and I'm going to go do this and I'm going to make that. And I literally always was trying to figure out how can I do something, you know, to create a job or create some income to go do the things I want to do, obviously, which were surf, you know, and skateboard and snowboard. So, you know, at the end of the day, those things they're great sports, and but they are, you know, they cost money, you know. And I was always thinking to myself, how do I get to go snowboard more? How do I get to do this more? You know, I want to go on a surf trip, you know. So that that was always my mind. Like, how can I come up with a little bit extra cash to go do that?
You hustled your way to it.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
you did, so.
And now I call my accountant and tell him like, okay, I got to go on a surf trip, got to test some stuff. And now it works, so.
You made it work.
Yeah. Thank God.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, you kind of touched on just a little bit there. You just said, I made tie-dye shirts because I saw a bunch of hippies running around. Did you ever feel that you fell in line with industry, not standards, but kind of like the way an industry was going? Or were you at the forefront of maybe a new look or products? Or how did Fuel fit into that? And like, you would see maybe a trend happening, or did you have a vision and you can like you said, read it maybe a little bit to say, oh, this is maybe what the market needs? How did you analyze these when you started putting out products at a larger scale?
Yeah, well, in the beginning, we just made products that we thought, oh, this would be cool, and if we think it's cool, maybe someone else will think it's cool. But that doesn't always work. And I know that because we did some designs in the beginning that I was like, look back and go, why did I do that? If I would have known now then, I totally would have changed things, and I would have. And there's all kinds of. I mean, that's when you beat yourself up. You're just like, oh man, that logo should have been done first. I never should have done this one. I went down the wrong path. But when it comes down to it, in the beginning, you're just making what you think is cool. Like, hey, I think I need a barn jacket. Oh, that'd be cool. And I need this, like pinwheel corduroy because I think it's gonna be cool. Did we have the marketing dollars to make it cool? No. Did we have a big enough audience to make it cool? No. So in retrospect, when you're a really small company, you have to already like go, okay, the trend's going here. Let me follow the trend a little bit so that we're kind of on par with everybody. But when you're a bigger company, you can do whatever you want. And then you just create the marketing behind it to create that buzz and make it cool.
You have that base kind of ready to jump on it when they see it.
Yeah, totally. And then there's been some great examples, and I can go through those. But, for me, then we were very wide in the beginning. We were making a lot of different products. In fact, way too many products. I was like, wait, why did I start a clothing company? That was like the dumbest thing ever because I didn't realize, but when you're a clothing company, you compete with everybody. Like everybody's making hats, t-shirts and shirts and shorts and all this stuff. And I'm like, wait a second, we got to really start to focus this thing down and like really figure out who we are, what can we do really well, can we be different? And that literally took us 15 plus years to figure that out. Wow. And then all of a sudden I was like, okay, we need to start to narrow this thing down. And of course I went through a bunch of different things over the years, through brick and mortar, through the internet start of things. And you had to kind of navigate those and pinpoint what you're really good at. And that's when I started really saying, years ago I said, oh wow, I can't make this many clothes. I can't make like, Waya Vera, shirt and then a dress over here and a skirt over here and a poncho here. I was making all kinds of stuff and I was just like, and we did it in a totally different world because when we started, myself and Buster left quite early, like maybe only 2 or 3 years in, he had left and gone on his own. He wanted to go keep doing his professional skateboard career. And it's just one of those things where I was like, okay, well, I'm on this by myself. I got to figure this out, and I got to narrow down my focus a little bit. And as I kind of grew into it, I figured out, hey, this is maybe a section I can do a little bit better at. I wasn't a very good designer at all. It was just kind of like, I like this idea. Let's try this. And then you'd find out like, oh man, no one else is doing this. What are we doing? And you got to kind of go back to zero again and go, okay, this worked. Let's try this a little bit more. And you baby step your way into finding out who you really are. But sometimes it takes 10, 15 years to do that, and most people have already failed by then or given up, and not until then did we go, wait a second, like we've got something with socks. I think there's potential there. I think it's unique that we can write the name on top of it. It's left and right. You can write something funny on the bottom, and so your feet are up. It says this. And we kind of said, okay, well, that's our stamp. We're gonna go with this. This is where we are, and we're gonna run with this, and we're gonna start to slow down on other parts of our things and make those more limited edition things, and really focus on that.
When was that? You jumped in full head into sock game.
Well, I think I started first socks in '99. So that's what's 20 years, 20. Yeah, it's over 20 years ago. So yeah, I'd say after the first 10 years of work or whatever, and then I made a couple socks, and it took a little while. It wasn't like all of a sudden we're like, first time we did it, we're like, that's it.
Did you have big competitors at the time, like kind of doing socks? So what was important to you when you were designing your socks, when you started them? Yeah,
when we first started, we were just like, we needed another accessory to go to our line. It wasn't like, this is the thing we're going to do down the road. It was literally like, hey, we need another accessory. And I happened to meet a factory. They made socks and headbands and beanies. And I was like, okay, we need to add that to our arsenal. We were already making wallets and belts and bags. And I mean, we made everything. Anything you could possibly think of, we made it. And I remember making a first couple ones, and I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. Let's go with that. And then literally once I discovered putting the fuel text on the toes is when I figured, oh, you could put something on the bottom of the sock, and then when your feet are up, you could read it and it would say something. And I figured this out in the early, like 2000 some, I don't know exact time, but I had never seen anything like this. And I was like sitting there one day and I had my feet together and I was like, shit, I can write fuel on them and I'll know left and right. And it's like no brainer. It was like, oh, eureka. And, sure enough, I did one, and then I flipped it over, and I was like, man, I think I should say wide open. Man, we're gonna be wide open on the bikes and whatever, just in general. And I thought it was funny, and then it literally went on and on from there. And years later, it's now people know us for that. Now you see other people doing it, but nobody had anything like that in the industry.
When you look at your pictures and like even on Instagram, I've never seen the pictures of so many bottoms of people's feet.
Yeah.
Because it literally says something. And I loved it. So, and that was my question, like, who came up with that? And like you said, that was your eureka moment, really.
Yeah. And it was literally me just sitting there. A lot of times I would sit there and just look at product, and I'd just go like, how can I do something different? What can I do? And I knew that our name wasn't big enough to just put our name on the side of the sock and be like, okay, here's a Volcom Stone. They're already, this mammoth company at the time, and they had all the traction in the world. And I was like, I got to do something different. There's no way I can compete with them, or any of the people at the time. If it was Quicksilver or whoever was making, a lot of people made socks, but they were only making black, white, and I was like, wait a second, I gotta come out with some color, and then I gotta have some verbiage to set us apart. And of course, once we started doing that, then it was like, okay, how far can we go? How many random sayings can we say? And it's, now we've done, I don't know how many socks. It's a lot of them. So.
All right, quick break there. Hope you all enjoyed the first half of the episode. Love talking to Shane about his socks. I see this guy at trade shows all over the place. He's always got a big OGO bag full of them, and he's always giving them out to everybody. And what they say on the bottom, it's hilarious. I've got like 4 pair. He just got me, and I can't wait to wear them mountain biking to the gym. And they're great for all sorts of outdoor activities. So head over to @Fuel Clothing on Instagram or their website, fuelclothing.com. You guys can peep yourself a pair of those. And we're going to get back into it the second half of the episode with Shane from Fuel Clothing. When it came to kind of narrowing down your products, and you had that moment where you said, okay, I could write on the socks, is that what it made you decide that socks was going to be the product in the category I wanted to grow, not belts and walls and all that stuff? Okay.
Yeah. We started when I put that together in my mind, I was like, okay, this is something that's different. This is something I've not seen anybody else in our industry, meaning surf, skate, snow, moto. I had not seen anybody else do it. This is before we didn't have social media then. We had a website in 96 or 96, I think it was. So we had a website early, but I mean, you're talking like no one really surfed the web back then. It wasn't like we were looking around and seeing stuff and getting ideas. When I started doing that 2000, time period, this is before all that stuff kind of kicked up. Not until, and then a couple of years, once the brick and mortar started to fail in our industry, I started to see, wait a second, well, I'm in a room with 50 brands I got to compete against. And when I went from that to the internet, now I compete against thousands of brands. And how do I stand out from those brands? And that's when I was going to myself, okay, wait a second. We definitely do not have the space or the marketing dollars to become the it company on the internet to get that customer. So I thought to myself, and this is another moment where I was like, okay, who has that space that I can help make stuff for them? And literally I was like, it was at this time I was only making socks for other people. And I was like, okay, I can make this for a race team. I can make this for a band. I can make this for a restaurant. I can make it for whoever. And this was just socks. And then, numerous years later, then I added beanies and then I added hats. And when I really felt that I had the production down, the quality, the timing, the price, everything worked, I would bring that to the people and say, hey, let me do this product for you. And then at that time, which was like 15 plus years ago, I think we did stuff even back in the early 2000s. I remember making stuff for other people. I'd done stuff for Michelin back in 2003 and some of these bigger companies. And at that time I was doing mechanics gloves and work gloves, and I was trying to get those on all the teams and create them. And I was going after airline companies and shipping companies. And at that time I was trying to make the glove work. And then I just was like, okay, that's not working. Let me do jeans for everybody. Let me try that. And then I started doing that a little bit, and I couldn't get traction with that. And then I was like, okay, let me just keep going. And then I got to the socks, and then I started making socks for a couple of the teams, and they were like, wow, these are really nice. And they really enjoyed them. And they had funny sayings on the bottom. They had personal touch to them. And that's where it started. And then, literally we did from, one company to 10 to 100 to, we're well over 500 companies that we do it for now. So it's crazy.
You made the wheel, and then they kind of just jumped on with their branding and created the socks for them.
Yeah. So we decided, as a brand, as, myself, we said, okay, well, if we can't become the brand that I want to be, I don't have the finances. I don't have a endless tank of money. I said, there's other people out there that have a voice, they have brands. And this is when people, and I talked about this before, but, brands as far as your Quicksilvers, your Billabongs, your Fox, your major brands, they all had their athletes and their ambassadors and their what you call influencers even back, 20 years ago. But all those kind of people started to become their own brand when social media came around, and they started to make their own brands, and they started to create their own image. So I just kind of put two and two together and said, wait a second, I think I can help these guys, and I can help them in a position, a product that they can't normally get. Like anybody can go down and get a t-shirt made at Joe Blow print shop, but can you go get a quality sock made that's really truly yours and custom to you, and at a small enough number, the right price, the right turnaround time? And that was where we really kind of set ourselves apart from everybody.
That was your competitive advantage then. I mean,
yeah.
In that people were saying it's a great product, the price point's there, it's something they can't get themselves.
Yeah.
I was going to say, what would keep a big company like Michelin from just saying, I'm going to go make our own socks?
Well, they could.
Yeah.
They could. Do they want to hassle with getting the product correct first? Or do they want to hassle with the import, exporting, designing, all that stuff combined? No, because what we've put ourselves in position is we say, wait, let's just go ahead and we'll just add a little nick on every single one and go for volume, not worry about trying to gouge. So anybody who was in my competitive space was much more expensive. And rightfully, they understand how hard it is to do it. But I was looking at the bigger picture going, okay, well, I'm not going to ask for a whole lot. I'm not, some of these deals I do, you get 100, 200 pair of socks, you make a little bit of money. You're like, it wasn't great. But I look at the long-term play, the 10-year, 5-year plans where maybe they buy 300 socks this year. Next year, they buy 500 or 700. The year after that, they buy 2,000. Now that customer stays with me for 5, 10 years. He's now making 10,000 socks a year, and I'm not just have him, but now I've got 3, 4, 5. Now we're up to 100. Now we're 200. Now we're 300. Now you see how the thing works, where it makes sense. So if I gouge people and I didn't treat them fair in that particular business, then they're going to go find someone else, and then I'd only have them once.
So by scaling it, having the amounts of customers plus their orders and long term. Yeah.
Yeah. So we looked at it like, as far as the brand, we said, okay, we can help these guys. We can do this at a our overhead's low. We can create a product that really does work with them and resonate, and they can turn around and sell it to their fans and their brand ambassadors and those people, direct to consumer work. And they're going to come back to us, and they're going to come back and they're going to say, hey, we want you to do this product for us. And this many socks, and then it turned into beanies, then it turned into socks. So I only do 3 products, and people ask us to do, hey, make us board shorts, make us snow gear, make us sweatshirts, t-shirts. I'm like, no. I'm creating what I know I can do extremely well, and I say, this is my product range. If it fits in your game, I'm happy to help you. If it doesn't, I'll be happy to send you to somebody I think that can help you. And we've been very fortunate that people get on board, we produce a product, and they're long-term customers. They want to keep buying from us. They want to keep, because they know they can call up and I will take care of it. It will be done. So no matter what, that's our first and foremost.
Do you think that might be a downfall of a lot of businesses or these kind of people that are going for the money versus the long-term goal, is that they're so flexible that they'll, oh yeah, I can do it. They're the yes man or the yes companies that maybe they don't have experience in it, or they're just taking on that job because it looks good and they're getting away from their core competencies? Well,
yeah, a lot of people say that, and I tell everybody, I will be the first one to tell you no. There's no question. I tell my best friends that all the time. You gotta learn no. No is a great word. No, I can't help you on that. And I will tell people, I will always say, listen, you're asking me to do something that's extremely difficult to do. So I'm not going to promise you that I'm going to do this. I'm going to tell you I can't do it. But if you still want me to try, I will do my best. And 9 times out of 10, or even 10 out of 10, I will get it done. But I will never tell them just to get the job, because at the end of the day, I got plenty of jobs to do, and I got plenty of great customers. I don't want to lose their faith by going, oh, I can do that, and then not do it. Because that's the first thing you're going to do, is they're not going to trust you for that next one or the next one. And believe me, we're not hitting home runs today. The home runs are a 10-year, 15-year, 20-year, experience. These brands, some will come and go, but your Fords and FedEx and Lowe's and Home Depots and your major brands, they're not going anywhere. These people, for the most part, are going to be a customer for life from us. And we've provided them a service, and it works for them. And that's what's really our ground. That's made us a great private label partner.
I'm just curious. Do you know how many socks you're responsible for putting in the market last year?
Oh my God. I don't know that. A lot of them. Yeah, a lot. I can't. It's definitely more than a few. Let's just say that. We have definitely moved. I mean, when we have some orders that are over 100,000 at a piece at a time, you can figure we've done a few socks.
That's quite a bit.
Yeah. We made.
They don't call you the biggest little company in America for nothing, right? Is that,
yeah.
And tell me, how'd you get that name? First of all, was that self-proclaimed? What is this?
Yeah. Well, my buddy and I, we were in Reno, and it said biggest little city in America or something like that. And this is back as before fuel. I don't know. I should know dates, but anyways, we were always like, oh, we're the biggest little company, because everybody's like, man, we know fuel. And we're like, dude, you have no idea how little we really are. We are so insignificant. But for some reason, our brand recognition, our brand name has a very, it's just an easy one to remember. It just happens to be a very common word, and the brand itself. And we just happen to position ourselves with great people. And it's like anything else, we always kind of make fun of ourselves. We're like, yeah, we're just the little guy and we don't care. It's like, okay.
Can we talk about your name for a little bit? Did you trademark, license that? Have you?
Mm-hmm. So
what Fuel TV? I know there's some connection there. What's?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the brand was incubated in 1992. We were just sitting around one day, and we always, as a kid, and this is well before 92, as a kid, I would always sit at the table at dinner or something, and And I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm going to fuel up and I'm drink my orange juice, and I'm going to fuel up. And then my dad would be like, hey, do you have the gas cans for the bikes, you have the fuel ready, and I always remembered it like, oh, did you fuel this up? And so I always was around that word, because I was always around motorsports. My dad was a mechanic and raced, he was into cars and motorcycles. And so I was always around that verbiage, and I took it to heart, like, oh yeah, I'm going to fuel up, Dad. I'm drinking some orange juice or milk or whatever it was, or I'm going to eat some cookies. That's my fuel, like it was just part of me. And then, and when we started the company, we decided like, hey, what is the fuel? What's the fire the passion that makes us do what we do, to go out and snowboard or go out and skateboard? Because those sports, as graceful as they are, they're very humbling. You can work on things for days and weeks and never get them right. And there's certain tricks or certain things. And that's the thing, like skateboarding taught you, like, there's no freebies. You are going to get hurt. Everything's going to hurt. You're going to knock yourself out. Snowboarding, I've been knocked out. Somebody in motocross knocked out. I mean, there's no easy way around it. It's not, you don't tiptoe into it and be like, oh, I just learned that. Like inverts, you just don't learn it. So those things all, was always a passion for me, and a fuel was our fire. I was like, keep fueling the fire. It was always like mindset and what's your fuel, and what's your passion. So that's kind of where it all began. Now, obviously, over years, I had licensed the name Fuel to a couple different people. I licensed my outerwear to the Japanese for 20 plus years, and I did a 20-year deal for backpacks with a friend of mine in Tennessee, and did that deal, and then eventually sold that. I eventually sold the outerwear deals. We did do an agreement with Fuel TV back in the early 2000s, which turned into nothing but an overnight litigation war over the name Fuel, which really was unfortunate that people in California, they say one thing and then they did something else. And it's not just California. I shouldn't say that, but these particular people were definitely talking out the side of their mouth when they were like, hey, yeah, we're going to go ahead and take care of this. We're going to license this, and I flew out there and met with everybody on the beginnings of, before any of this stuff started, before that part of it. And it bit me in the ass, and that literally took the wind out of my sails for years, fighting that battle, spending all the money, taking my company basically from very, very solid company, which at that time we were probably as close as we are, this is in the late 90s, as close as we were as a company to all our competitors, Volcom, Ezekiel, Counterculture, SMP, all those brands that were incubated, we were in the mix. We were in it with everybody. And that went down, and it just, the amount of money that it took, it literally took everything out of my sales to do that. And that, I don't even want to go into the mental part, what it does to you, but physically we burn, our burn rate was ridiculous on legal fees and
all over a name.
Yeah. All over a name
that you had rights to. And
I own the rights 100%.
Yeah.
Nobody had ifs, ands, or buts. I had licensed it to people. I've done coexisting agreements, licensing agreements to Reebok, to Nike, to Home Depot, to Sony Records, to all kinds of people, literally all kinds of trademark issues over the years, and navigated through all these. And Fuel TV, which was Rupert Murdoch and Fox, they were just cutthroat. They did not. Nike was the same way. I would put them on the list of just not friendly.
I read you had a issue with them using the terms as well.
Yeah, doing the Fuel bracelet. We had the rights for watches, for accessories, and they wanted to call it. They called it a Fuel heart monitoring device. They didn't want to be. They were like trying to figure out the angle of how not to get us, to pay us for it. And of course, they're still using skateboarders to try to promote it, and it was just a big ordeal. And
how do you fight stuff like that? I mean,
that's the problem. I'm such an angry person, and it's just like, you take something that you've built your whole life, you've made all your efforts, and you do it, And all of a sudden somebody comes in and says, oh, I'm just going to take that from you. We're big. You're not going to fight us. And I'm like, oh, geez, this is not what I want to do today. You know, this is the part that nobody's going to Instagram and go, yep, this is how it really is. This is what it's like. Like I go to court on Tuesday to go deal with some guy who owes me money. Like they don't want to know that stuff. They don't want to see that stuff. They want to see like, oh, you're, you're at the races, you're doing this and doing that. And I mean, but at the end of the day, I got to go through all of it. I got to go sit down and talk to the accountant and figure out why that happened. Or I got to go talk to the lawyer and figure out why that happened and like navigate those things. That's the part of business that's you pull your hair out. You know, you literally are like, and that being said, I wouldn't trade it because the highs are high, like going out there and seeing somebody wearing your product, the best athletes in the world and the best people in the world that love your product and say like, it's a great product. That to me is amazing, and they're not paying for it, of course, but at the end of the day, they're validating your product,
Yeah, they're excited to be part of it.
Yeah, 100%.
That makes up for all those
yeah
hard, long nights and attorney fees and
it's just
lawyers.
It takes a lot because and that's the thing is we're a business that runs 24/7. There's no clock in, clock out. I mean, you literally get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, start doing emails, and I literally by 7 o'clock at night, I got to eat because the Philippines is already up and going and it's already their morning. So I got to be on for the next 3-4 hours with them, making sure they're set. So when I go to bed, they're working on it all day. So instead of me missing by shutting down doors at 6 o'clock being done, I miss a whole nother day, and then me to get it and then to answer to it's a whole nother day. So by me staying up, I'm actually saving time. I'm more effective and efficient. So a lot of people don't understand that you have to be there to take care of those things. And it's a nonstop revolving, the time doesn't stop.
Do you guys do a lot of web sales nowadays with the new site, and do you focus there much? Or?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's been our focus for the last 10 years. When brick and mortar really started to fail, and I would say fail because, at a heyday, we sold maybe 1,200 stores in America, maybe a little bit more. And you could see those fall off. You could see people slowing down on that. And obviously recently in the last 5 years, you've really seen brick and mortar suffer. I've seen it in my own retail store that I've had for 25 years really start to slow down. People kick doors, they come in, they try things on, they go home, they order on the internet, and that's just the way it is. They got all the sizes on the internet, they got all the sales on the internet. So, at the end of the day, I have to embrace it. So we need to go direct to consumer, of course. So, as us, we're going to do the same thing, but do we have a voice? No. Can we go ahead and create a funnel and drive people to our website? No, not really as easy as it sounds. It's like people say, oh, you can do this, this, and this, and you can spend this X to be this, and here's your ROI, but it's bullshit.
Do you mess with any of that at all? Like, I mean, I've had clients before. I mean, how much money are you putting in for marketing? I mean, we don't need numbers, but is it significant? Like, look at your Instagram page. Yeah. Everybody should go there right now and check it out. Hatfield Clothing. They've got some of the prettiest girls wearing these socks. How do you get them?
That's a whole nother subject. And believe me, some of the best athletes in the world still call me and ask me that question.
Oh my Lord.
But going back to the true question, the first part of it was the internet is everything. We have to use it. We have to be a part of it. We have to embrace it. And to create certain products really work well on the internet. You can drive someone to your site. They can instantly buy it. It can be an impulse buy. Certain products really do resonate if it's a really fine group of people, like a niche that you're really going after. Socks is not a niche that's easily done like that. It's just, if you're doing outerwear, snowboard wear, it's like really easy to say, okay, here's my outerwear. This is who's looking at it. And it's a little bit easier, but typically those products, cosmetics are really good direct to consumer. There's little things that work really well, but socks is not one of them. But we do spend the time and the money and the effort to do it. And I find that every time I do it and I go do like a 5-month run, I'll look at the results. We'll go back. We'll wait a couple months, do it again for a few more months, try to try to change it, see what we can do, have marketing companies work with us. I mean, we do put in the time and the effort and serious money. And every single time I come back to it, it's better for me just to be who I am, go to the events, connect the dots, make product for other people. And in full circle, it works. We just have a better outcome. Our online sales are better because of that.
So you're not guaranteeing all your time and effort being spent into paid ads and stuff, but that feet on the ground. For us, it works that way. I'm not saying that anybody else is going to work that way, but for us, it's a handshake going out, meeting the right people. Not only does it help my private label business, but it also helps our brand. People recognize that, they see it, they understand it, they get behind it. If I'm force feeding them ads on Instagram and pushing them on Facebook and retargeting them, it doesn't resonate with them. Yeah. That's not authentic to who we are. We're not trying to sit there and push the product down your throat. It's like, hey, if you believe in what's your fuel and you understand and you like a good product and you want to support a brand like mine, great. But we're not forcing it on anybody. Yeah. And that's really how we've navigated the last 15 years is we said, okay, well, this is not the position we're going to be in. Okay. Our position is if you truly believe in the product and you enjoy the brand itself, it will come. So let's go out and do our homework. Let's do the private label. Let's go create our base salary. Let's make sure everybody's paid and everything's working. And then icing on the top is going out there and putting the brand on the best athletes, obviously the most attractive women in the world. And we're very fortunate because most of our athletes that are out there, they date some of the best looking women on the earth. I swear, I'm very jealous of it. But at the end of the day, I've also been well aware of how do you navigate putting a product on somebody, but you're not necessarily trying to push the product. So how do you do that? Like a lot of people, they can say, okay, well, I'm an influencer, which I think influencers is not necessarily the correct term. Everybody's been influencer, but before they used to be athletes. Before that, they were ambassadors. I mean, it's always just changing. But in that social media presence, those people, they typically try to sell something, and typically if you're trying to sell something, our audience now is so immune to it. They've almost be desensitized to it. So we don't really try to do that part of it because it really is, if you're saying, hey, here's my X, energy drink and here it is, I get it. You're marketing for that brand, but that makes some people think of the brand, but it doesn't really return on investment. It doesn't really get the person to go buy that drink right now off the online and order it. It's very difficult. And I think, we've always just tried to provide a good product that people liked, and it just happens that they like to wear them, but we don't really have people that are like, oh, you got to buy these. No. I think we talked a little bit about this before the interview, but the kind of the relationship between people and brands and people and athletes or people that are part of a company, like Kelly Slater and Hurley and whatnot, you see that in Fuel Clothing that people are there because they appreciate the brand. Mm-hmm. They're not, and maybe we can talk on that a little bit about athletes and maybe the transition in the past and where it's kind of come.
Well, I mean, brands are hurting. If you boil everything down in a nutshell, our typical brands, our big brands. When I always think big brands, it's like the majors. I remember in surfing, it was like Billabong, Quicksilver. These are the major brands. These are the guys, and they all had spent all their money on the best athletes in the world, and the best athletes. And don't forget, the landscape of how sponsorship have happened. Brands used to be everything. Everybody bought those. If it was Jimmy Z's or if it was whatever it was that time, those major brands, and those brands will put money back into their athletes, into the contest scene, into all that. And that it was all like driven to those brands. But once social media started happening, there's a couple other pieces. Energy drinks really basically propped up our whole industry. Action sports, motorsports would not be anywhere without energy drinks. The amount of money that those three brands, Rockstar, Monster, Red Bull, have brought into our business and our industry there would not be anything without them. There wouldn't be X Games. There wouldn't be major, events anywhere. They literally have built that, and thank God. I mean, honestly, athletes would not be the athletes they are or make the salaries they ever made from not having those. So let's go back to before that, those brands. Then as energy drinks started to come in, they started to support the athletes. They started to support the events. And even the next step beyond that is those athletes, once social media started to create their own brand and made them their own identity, now they're not necessarily pushing like the brands they rode for as much as they're pushing their own brand and what they're going to sell. So if Kelly Slater's like, hey, let's go back 10 years or more, Kelly's pushing Quicksilver and people love Quicksilver, but then Kelly goes off and does his own brand. And then people are like, oh, well, I really follow Quicksilver because of Kelly, or John because of Hurley, or you know what I mean? Hurley because of John. They're all that way, right? So then they're like, well, if John's doing his own brand, I want to buy that, or Kelly's doing his own brand, or whoever it may be, and that's really what's happened is, and then you have a whole nother dynamic, which is all your musicians, they're their own brands. And then you have all your YouTubers that are just whatever you want, whatever. They're not really athletes or musicians or any of this, or they're just YouTubers in their own right. And they created their own brand. So now people are buying directly to that person and what their brand stands for. So that's taken away from all the original brands. So all those brands now are suffering big time. So it's a totally different world now, which we're very fortunate because on our end, we get to work with all those great guys because they're not brands, but they have created their own audience to sell a product. And
you can brand any product that's in your line that you want to do for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So typically, if someone comes to us, they want a hat. Any kind of hat, we create it, it's no big deal. And typically people start with a hat and a t-shirt. We just don't do t-shirts because you can go to get a t-shirt anywhere. So we only do the things that are difficult to make, and we know we can do it better than anybody else.
That's really cool. Just the last few questions here. I want to kind of curious about, was there any skills maybe that you learned as a young athlete that has carried over into your business career, and also something that you put into place a lot in your professional athlete career?
Wow. Say the first part.
So what skills maybe did you learn as a competitive athlete that have carried over into your business career?
I think being a professional athlete, and then obviously each athlete is completely unique, whatever sport it is. But I think just the creativity of being a snowboarder and being in skateboarding and stuff, you're always an individual, and you're very creative as being an individual. You're not counting on anybody else. But I also learned that you're going to just do this over and over and over until you get it. And I kind of brought that same tenacity into the business. Like, okay, I'm too dumb to quit, so let's just keep landing on our head until we figure it out kind of attitude. And it literally, it's worked for me, but a lot of people they don't like landing on their head. They don't like making failures. They just, I guess they feel that it looks bad, but to me, I don't give a shit. It's honestly, at the end of the day, it's like, if I've landed on my head a few times, it doesn't matter. I'm going to keep going and I'll do it again. And eventually you'll figure it out. You can only hit yourself in the head so many times, or hit your thumb with a hammer too many times before you go, okay, I got to change this. I got to make it right. But I think in those sports, it really teaches you to say, okay, let's focus on this. Let's really, what's at hand, figure it out, go through the steps, get it done, claim it, move on to the next thing in your mind. Like, okay, I got this down. It's in my repertoire, and same thing with business. Same thing we do. We just do the same thing. We go in there, we try to figure it out. We go ahead, okay, we figured out how to do this. Let's figure out the next step. What's the evolution of that? Don't look back at what you did in the past, because that's not going to work anymore. Keep working on new things. What's the next thing? What's the next thing? So, that's one thing that I have to look back and go, why did I do that? Okay, let's not make the mistake. Well, that being said, being in business as long as I've been in business, you've made all the mistakes. So when I come to a new mistake or a new challenge, I can look back at all the mistakes and go, okay, I've been there, I've done this. This is how we navigate. And that's why people come to you and they, for consulting, or they come to you for advice, because you've already made them all.
Seen it all.
You've seen it all. And some things do pop up, like coronavirus has popped up and has never seen it before, so, we're all navigating that ourselves right now. But at the end of the day, experience, there's nothing like it. There's you just have to, as naive as you are, how young and gung-ho you are, experience wins every time. Every time. You might get lucky, but experience at the end of the day that's the long-term, effects,
That's awesome. All right. Well, we've talked about a lot, and I feel like we can continue on forever, and I know you don't have the time, but we usually do a thing called last poll at the end where we ask a couple questions, but due to all this mishap and change of plans and cancellations of the event this last week, and I normally wouldn't want to talk about current events, but going back to coronavirus, how do you envision this affecting you and your company, and what kind of things maybe are you trying to put in place, or are you going to work on when you get back to work on Monday?
Well, that's true. I mean, being that we're in a position that we've never been in before, we don't know. Yes, we'll go back on Monday. We'll sit down as a group, as I call the family, and we will decide on what works. Now, we don't manufacture in China, so it doesn't affect us in the Chinese section. But no matter what, it affects us because we work with so many companies that will have downtime. That affects our expedience or our timelines of getting things done, because now people aren't going to be at work. They're not going to be able to answer things. We'll still be producing products, but so it's going to be a little bit of a, I think, hindrance of time. And then to see how long this actually goes on for. If this is something that's going to be 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, what's the real timeline? I feel that if we do things that we're supposed to do, and everybody does step back and take a little hiatus and separates themselves in their own way of doing it, I think a few months down the road it'll be behind us and we'll just charge forward. But like I said, we thought we were coming here to have an event, and literally till last night at 10 o'clock, we were all gung ho, and it changed. So you just don't know, and Monday morning we might get something that's totally throws us for another loop. So you can only prepare. Hopefully everybody goes home, everybody stays safe and does their thing, and we don't, and we can shut this thing down and move forward. Cause we got a long life, there's a lot to be done. And, this is a small hiccup in the whole world of what we're doing. And like I tell people all the time, you have a long life. I mean, there's lots to be done. People are always, they want it tomorrow, but if you really want it, we have a long life and you're going to get it. You just got to take your time and really say, okay, this is what it is. And really say, okay, this is my real goal. And really, it's everything's obtainable. It's just how much effort you really want to put in,
That's great. Well, Shane, I appreciate you sitting down with me. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. First time for me. I enjoyed it. I don't know what I'm doing, but we wing it,
You did a hell of a job, buddy.
Thank you.
See you in Hilton Head soon.
Yeah.
And you guys can check out all of his information, link to the website, Instagram, and everything in the show notes. And I'll catch you on the flip side. All right, what do y'all think? Episode 2, rock and rolling out the door. Had a blast doing that with Shane. I've known Fuel Clothing and him for quite a long time, but to hear him actually explain the hardships and troubles he's gone through with the brand, I really didn't know the half of it. So it's really cool to get in there and see what he felt was an important sector of his business to grow and how he's done that. So another really cool thing that I thought Shane mentioned, which you really don't hear in today's environment as much anymore, but the fact that he's not taking a ton of money and throwing it into Facebook and Instagram advertising. He's looking at it as a ROAS, of course, and it's probably, I'm sure, around where he'd want it to be, but it's not a huge focus in growing the brand. They've done the legwork. They've created the private label. They know how much they need to make to keep business going. But when it comes to grabbing new customers, they they don't want to be shoving content down people's throats through ads and paid advertising. So he's saving a lot of money there. On top of that, he's really made it an effort his entire life and career of the brand to get out, be present, be at events, be networking, and in front of people. So just take that to heart. If you guys are looking to create your own brand and you're looking for advertising, a great way to save money. It's a little bit more work, but get on the road, get in front of the people and in front of your market and those customers where it matters. On top of that, I just couldn't ask for a better guest. Shane was a blast to sit down with. I'm really excited to catch up with him again at their new headquarter offices in Park City, Utah, which should be opening, he said, I believe September 2020. So if all goes as planned, we'll be out there, and maybe we can talk about some really cool things that they've done in private labeling, their sexy girl Instagram modeling stuff, and licensing. I think he's been through it all, and I'd love to pick his brain some more on those topics. If you guys enjoyed that one, do me a favor. You can screenshot the episode, send me a DM, or post it on Instagram. That'd be awesome. If you have any recommendations for action sport type CEOs that I should talk to, please refer them, send them my way. Give me a name. I don't care. I'll find them. I'll hunt them down, and we'll get them on the show. You can also head over to the Facebook page and leave some questions for future guests or things you'd like to know about business or maybe even your action sports career. We'll definitely drop those in future episodes. Well, I guess that's a wrap. We're going to head out. It's a beautiful day here in Florida. I'm thinking about dropping the boat in and doing some hydrofoil surfing. So I think that's what we're going to do. All right, guys, keep it real. Go check yourself out some Fuel socks, and I'll catch you on the flip side.